There we go. Okay, so now when you're in class, you are probably gonna drape your client. So you will do a full set of sheets. You're not ever really gonna need the face cradle, so you can put it in, but just prop it down to the side. Like I said, today I'm gonna do it for you. Next class will be mostly arm and chest, so we will drape. It'll just be the upper body though. So just like you do in Swedish, right? How you get on and off the table, that applies here as well. Today's just a special day. So when we do regular class, what I'll do is I will bring you all together before anyone gets on the table, and we will go over bony landmarks. So I'll show you where bony landmarks are, palpating them, how to find them. Those are the things that you're gonna need to mark for your muscle drawings. Then we'll break. You will mark those bony landmarks, and then you will fill in the gaps, which is gonna be the muscle tissue, okay? I will have certain ones set for you to do. There's a lot of muscles that we're not gonna draw. Obviously, I'm not gonna draw the abdominals, right? As well as some other muscles like parts of the pec. We won't be able to draw for the ladies because the breast tissue is in the way. So just know that there's only gonna be certain muscles that we draw. Other ones, we'll just have to use our imagination. So first step, finding your bony landmarks. You need to learn to find your bony landmarks. Do not try to just copy your pictures onto the body because you will be wrong and I will make you do it again. Trust me, I can tell when you found the bony landmark or you didn't, okay? So find the bony landmarks. So the bony landmarks are gonna be relevant to us today. Today I'm gonna draw the upper trap for you, the SCM and the scalene. Now some of these bony landmarks are gonna be in her hairline, so I'm not gonna mark those. When I draw, I'm just gonna draw up to the hairline and I'll stop short. That way I'm not drawing in her hair, okay? So the bony landmarks we need, I need the clavicle, parts of the scapula, parts of the skull. So let's find those. Let's find the sternum first, that's the easiest thing. So you can palpate this on yourself. Find the top of your sternum and push in like you're gonna throat punch yourself. That's your manubrium. So once I find that, I'm just gonna trace it. And now I can follow that out to the side and just follow the outlines of her clavicle. I'm not looking for perfection per se. I just want you to have an idea of where that bone is, especially the bones that you really can feel. It's gonna make your life really easy when you are drawing the muscle. So now I'm getting over here, I did the clavicle, and now remember the clavicle meets the acromion. So I'm gonna keep palpating. The acromion is kind of big for some people. It's a big flat portion of that scapula. And if you're really good, you can palpate the AC joint. Her AC joint's right there. It just feels like a little divot. And then that acromion meets it, and I can palpate backwards, try to feel out for the scapular spine. I can feel the upper edge of her scapula there. That scapular spine reaches back that way. So now obviously there's trap tissue over top, so I've only really got the scapular spine and the acromion. Because once I get over here, there is scapula bone underneath that, but there's trap on top of it. So it's really hard for me to tell what's going on there. And then same thing if I'm gonna palpate for the ribs. There's a lot of tissue over top of those ribs. I'm not gonna be able to actually feel those ribs like I can feel the clavicle, right? Does that make sense? Much in the same way, you really can't feel much of your humerus because it's completely encased in bones. There's parts where it's a little more exposed, like right here, but for the most part, it's covered in tissue. So I've got the two big ones that I need, clavicle and the acromion, scapular spine. Now I am not gonna mark it because again, it's in her hair, but I am gonna look for the mastoid process. Turn your head for me, thank you, ma'am. Go ahead and relax. So right behind her ear, usually even with the earlobe, is her mastoid process. That's the one we first felt. I need to know where that's at because that's where that SCM is attaching. Okay, again, I don't want to draw it because I just don't want to draw on her hair. And then the EOP, I need to know where that's at. So I'm gonna bring her back neutral and I'm just gonna palpate the back of her head. I'm feeling for the drop off, okay? Again, not gonna mark it because it's in her hair, but I wanna know where that's at. So let's start with the most superficial one, that's gonna be the upper trap. I know that the upper trap is grabbing onto the lateral third of the clavicle, the acromion, and then the scapular spine around the back. I know it's gonna come up to the EOP. Now, I'm gonna cheat a little bit. It's not really cheating, but I'm gonna cheat a little bit. If you know what the actions are, if you make them do that action, if the muscle is pretty superficial, it'll make that muscle pop up more. I know that the upper trap is a elevator of the shoulder and a lateral flexor of the neck and head. So what I can do is I'm gonna stretch her just a little bit. I'm gonna put my hand here. She's gonna push against my hand with her head. That's gonna be that lateral flexion. She's also gonna shrug up at the same time. Ready, set, go. She pushes me. Now you can kind of see, go ahead, relax. We'll do it one more time. I want you to watch right through here. Right, there's gonna be some other muscles that pop up because they're lateral flexors. Her SCM is gonna pop up a little bit. Her scalenes are also gonna pop up a little bit. But I want you to watch through here. This is a good chunk of the upper trap, and it's gonna kind of disappear. But I want you to look back here for the line of the upper trap. Ready, set, go. There we go. Now you can see it. Good, relax. So I can double check my work. I can erase my work as well. I can double check my work, make sure I'm in the right area. And that looked pretty good to me. So now I'm just going to connect the dots. I'm going to follow that trap where it should be going up to the EOP. Again, not going to draw in her hair. Almost licked my finger, that would be. And now what I would like for you to do is give it some life. And what I mean by that is draw the fiber direction so you can see how this muscle is going to draw those two bones together. And now remember that's going up the back of her head as well. Okay, so that's upper trap. Now we also have SCM. I'll do the SCM in blue. I'm going to bring her back to neutral. Now again, I know that the SCM has attachments to the manubrium and the inner portion of the clavicle. So about that lateral third. I know it's attaching to her mastoid process. Now I'm going to check my work by making the muscle contract. So I'm going to put, I like to say, put it in its actions. So if I know that if I'm talking about this SCM, her left SCM, it's going to turn her head to the right, and it's also going to flex. So let's do that. So I'm going to turn her head to the right, and right away I can already see it popping up. And then now I'm just going to ask her to elevate her head off the table. Just lift that hip. That's that SCM right there. So if I really want to be accurate, I'm just going to trace it. Not to get her necklace. And I'm going to follow it all the way up to as much, good, you can relax, of her head as I can get without being in her hair. And then I'll give it some life. There's our muscle fibers. And there's your SCM. Right, moving along. Now, some muscles are gonna be really hard to figure out exactly where they're at. And you're gonna have to use a combination of palpating and getting the muscle to contract by making them do the action. The scalenes is one of those because it's a little bit deeper into the neck. It's underneath parts of the SCM. Sometimes the trap will overlay, especially the posterior scalene. So I know that the scalenes, you've got 3 of them, right? The anterior scalene is going from C3 to C6 down to the first rib underneath the clavicle. The middle scalene is C2 to C7 down to the first rib, almost directly out to the side. That's the biggest one. That's going to be the easiest one to feel. And then the posterior scalene is 5 to 7, and it's going to have a more backwards trajectory underneath the trap, attaching to the second rib. Okay? So basically what I just said is we've got the transverse process of the cervical vertebrae from C2 down, and then ribs 1 and 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put her in neutral. I'm going to go just down from the mastoid process. If you drop straight down from the mastoid process and you push in, what you'll find is you are at the level of the spine. Meaning I'm not falling off the back of it and I'm not throat punching them in their trachea, right? I'm at the level of the spine. So mastoid process drops straight down. You'll just palpate in there and you'll find that it's just a lot of tissue. You're not really feeling much bone. If I go in between the trap and the scalene, or in the SCM, and I kind of drop down, that is usually a good place to start. And if you just kind of push in and strum up and down like this, or forward and back like this, you might be able to feel that really thick, fat middle scalene. It'll feel like a guitar string, kind of like flipping back and over. Now we can check our work again. I'm gonna make sure I'm in the right area, so I'm in between trap and SCM. I'm gonna put my fingers in there. Now remember the scalenes laterally flex the neck. So I'm gonna put my hand back here again, have her push against my hand, and then I'm gonna strum in there. And now there's a lot contracting, but that's the scalene right there. And that makes it a little bit easier to feel. Go ahead, relax. So we'll use our imagination. I'm gonna draw fake rib. Remember, that's deeper down, right? It's underneath the collarbone. And then we'll draw a fake second rib. Okay, just pretend that that's the ribs. And then I'll come in and draw my scalenes. So again, I know it's not gonna be C1, which would be right under that mastoid process. It's gonna be C2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then they're gonna go that anterior scalene. So if I wanna be real accurate, I would do 1, 2, 3 through 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, there we go. And I would just draw that down and forward towards that first rib. Now the middle scalene is gonna be 2 all the way down to 7. I'm gonna draw that one straight out to the side because that's pretty much what it does. And then that posterior would be, I already lost my dots, but 5 through 7, so a little bit lower, and that's gonna be back at an angle towards that last rib. So if I wanted to be like super, super accurate, I would kind of draw it like that. And that's kind of what those scalenes look like, except they're underneath the trap. You can turn them and you can palpate a little bit. Now remember, anytime you put, like if I move her head this way, all of this tissue is gonna get stretched. It's gonna get tensioned. And just like when I pull a rubber band tight, right, if I start to stretch a rubber band, it gets tight and it gets harder to push through. So sometimes what's better is if you actually slack and then push around in there. Because now everything is softened and it has more give, and I can start to differentiate between the structures. So I can kind of just lightly push my fingers in there. Okay, that's the SCM. I'm gonna come back a little bit. Those are little stringies. That feels like a scalene. I can drop down a little bit. There's that anterior scalene. I can come back a little bit. There's that middle, right? The posterior is a little bit harder to find because it's up underneath that trap. Sometimes you can get to it, be about right there, right? So the scalenes will be a little bit harder, but you get the idea. It's about where it should be, okay? It doesn't have to be 100% accurate, but I need you in the right space. You should be between that SCM and that trap. So that's what you guys would normally do, but I did it for you. Now, what you are gonna do is the pin and stretches. So we already have pin and stretches filmed.